ResinWorks EasyCast 200 Castable resin. Let's give it a review. Hey guys, a lot of you have been asking me to review ResinWorks Castable resins for a while, and it's been tricky for me to get hold of. But luckily that's changed, as our old friend Stuart at pro3dshop.com is now an official UK seller of the ResinWorks brand, and he very kindly sent me a bottle of their EasyCast 200 to review. So my thanks go to Stuart for this opportunity. EasyCast 200 is pitched as being a simple resin to work with, capable of handling fine detail on smaller prints such as jewellery. So let's test those claims. I typically use my Frozen Sonic 4K for these sorts of reviews, and this is no exception. A good number of settings are helpfully provided on the ResinWorks website, and amazingly, the literature says that temperature isn't an issue for this resin. So, even though it was a chilly 12 degrees Celsius in my workshop, I set about printing with confidence. The problem was, however, that I couldn't get anything to stick to the build plate. I tried warming the resin to 25 degrees Celsius, just in case temperature was an issue after all, and tried again, several times, adjusting the settings and swearing a lot along the way, but all without success. I eventually reached out to ResinWorks and described the whole situation. Interestingly, they suggested that temperature wasn't the problem, but that the flexible build plate on my Sonic 4K probably was. They suggested a rougher surface might be better. So I opted to change printers, switching to the Anycubic Photon Ultra, which has a checked build plate. Now, ResinWorks is a Canadian brand of resin, and one thing the Canadians know about is cold weather. So I took the plunge and printed with unheated resin, even though the ambient temperature of my workshop was now 11 degrees Celsius. And amazingly, it printed. I confess this Amerilabs Town test print has been knocking around in my workshop for several days, so it's got a bit bashed about. But trust me, it originally printed nicely. Certainly well enough for me to move on to something more appropriate. Once again, I looked at the fabulous work of Printed Obsession on my mini factory and found this amazing Raven ring. I love this piece. It's truly excellent work. Even at 11 degrees, the Ultra had no problem printing 2 of these rings. But hang on a minute, I'm getting ahead of myself. One drawback of this resin is that it likes thick supports, and plenty of them. This is something we've seen before with resins such as Bluecast X1, and for me it's not a deal breaker. Personally, when I support any print, I always include a number of very heavy supports to anchor the print firmly to the plate and help prevent any possible movement. And that's what I did here, before adding a massive amount of fine supports. I know, that's a lot of supports, but I rarely get failed prints. And just to be doubly sure, I printed the same print in 2 different configurations. But both came out very nicely. I expect good things from the Anycubic Ultra, as it's a DLP printer. But these prints were looking very nice. I clipped away the supports and gave the prints a generous 4-minute spin in a wash and cure using IPA. They were then air dried before being UV cured for 30 minutes. The resulting print looked excellent. This resin is very comfortable on the eye, and it's easy to see any possible print flaws. However, the prints are on the fragile side. It seems during clipping I broke away one section of the wing. So gentle handling of this resin is a must. The prints sand well, and even with 240 grit paper, it's no trouble to sand away the nubs left over from the supports. Then came the nightmare: wax spruing. What would normally take me 10 minutes took me 2 hours. The sprues just wouldn't stick, and even when they did, the slightest knock and they'd ping right off. I even tried roughing up the area where the sprues would go, but it was a nightmare. So much so that I had a whinge at ResinWorks. Now the fault here is mine, as I should have read the instructions more carefully. So let me clarify these to make life easier for you. Print, clean and UV cure, yes, but doing so can cause oils in the resin to seep to the surface. The solution is simple: an additional 30-second dip in nice clean IPA and an air blast to dry them off. As proof, here's 2 others I printed to experiment on. I sanded away the nubs as before, but just to be on the safe side, I wiped over the sanded area with a little IPA. I was then able to attach sprues with ease. And look at this. These sprues are certainly stuck, so don't forget that second wash after curing. The investment process is of course the same as usual. The burnout process is nothing unusual. If it works for wax, it should work for this resin. And these don't look too bad. In truth, they both looked perfect, so I opted to clean up the one with 2 good wings. I have to say, I'm very pleased with this casting. It's retained all the details added by the artist printed obsession, and it's a nice clean finish. So what do I think of ResinWorks EasyCast 200? As long as your build plate isn't silky smooth, prints should stick well without the need for warming, which in my cold workshop is a big bonus. Print supports need to be a little on the thick side, but that fits nicely into my style of printing anyway. There's plenty of detail in the prints and the colour is easy to work with. However, prints are a little weak, so gentle handling is required to prevent damage. Attaching sprues can be a pain unless you clean briefly after curing, which seems to resolve this issue completely. The burnout schedule is fairly typical for wax, which is a bonus for those sending off prints to casting foundries. And most importantly, of course, this resin casts perfectly. So this leaves just 2 issues: availability and price. Well, getting this in the US and Canada is very easy. And now, thanks to Pro3DShop.com, getting it in the UK is also a doddle. I'm not entirely sure about Europe, but I do know that Pro3DShop.com is happy enough to ship worldwide. As for price, it's not the cheapest castable resin I've come across, but it's not the most expensive either. It sits comfortably in the middle, and it provides a reliable alternative to other brands. So, in a nutshell, I like it. It's every bit as easy to work with as ResinWorks claim, and it certainly gets my nod of approval. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. As always, if you have any questions, just drop me a line. So take care, guys, and thanks for watching.